Excellent. Excellent, excelente. Okay. There's somebody chatting with me. This is going through the last phase here. I thought the counting was a test. That's awesome. Okay. Guys, we're recording. We are live on YouTube. I am going to get this started right now. We are technically perfect. I'm going to introduce George Voles, who, of course, Stony Brook is the host of today. This is the University Roundtable. This is Jonna's dream. We're making Jonna's dream a reality. Here from Long Island, Stony Brook, New York, University Roundtable. Welcome, everybody. George.
All right, I'm going to kick things off. We're going to do some introductions first before we get going. So, yeah. So George Voles, Director of Transportation and Fleet Services here at Stony Brook University.
My name is John Lehman. I'm from the University at Buffalo, and I'm the Parking Operations Manager.
Ephraim Tafara, Director of Parking Services, Stony Brook University.
Matt, go ahead.
Sure. I'm Matthew Reitmeyer. I'm the Assistant Director of Parking Services at the University of Buffalo.
Jason.
Hi, Jason Jones, University of Albany, Director of Parking and Mass Transit.
And Chris.
Hi, Chris, Stony Brockport, Parking System Specialist.
No, he said it. He said it very quickly. Yeah. All right. So thank you all for attending, panelists, attendees. And the idea behind this came from a lot of conversation. Number one, hosting at a university. Number two, trying to increase the membership from the higher ed section. And we know that we have particular challenges and hurdles in the higher ed sector that we're faced with, whether it's part of the state university system or private universities. So IPMI does something similar to this, a higher ed roundtable, and we thought that we could commiserate as New York State higher ed entities and maybe kick some things around that we're working on, struggling with, or maybe looking for some insight how other institutions are dealing with certain things. So we do have a couple items to start with to just throw out there, and certainly anyone else that has some questions or anything that they're going through looking for some advice can certainly jump in. So I'm going to start off with something that's on a lot of folks' minds on various campuses, and that's EV charging. We know about Executive Order 22, and we know about how we're going to struggle with infrastructure and charging in various parking areas. In the higher ed arena is charging for not just vehicles, but scooters and bikes. So I know that's a conversation that we have a lot here at our various committees, and how we do that safely, our fire marshals involved, and how that's going to affect policy. So let me put that out there as, let's say, our first topic, and see what some of the universities are doing, or if they have a path forward and a plan for how they're going to provide that. So I'm gonna ask Buffalo first. Seems they're right here, and see what they're experiencing, and maybe any advice you could give us.
So when it comes to just the EV charging for vehicles, I think the future hurdle, if you will, is just the available amount of EV charging stations that we have, and the use of them in general. So at the University of Buffalo, we have a 3-hour charging limit, and that's just to encourage turnover and have the spaces available for everyone on campus to use. So someone's not parking there, say, to start their day at 7 in the morning, and then occupy the space until 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when they're done with their workday. So just trying to figure out the best way to communicate that and get the messages out there, and just push back from individuals who the car or the charging stations are more so meant for a temporary thing, to just give yourself a little bit more juice throughout the day, not necessarily to charge you back up from 0 to 100. So I think that's one thing that we have been noticing and been facing recently. And then as far as like the scooters and the bikes, I know we've had like a few different vendors kind of like demo on campus. But for like personal vehicles, I can't speak to too much about that because I don't know if we necessarily have the population that uses it like on our campus. But speaking at like different institutions of higher ed that I've been at, the as far as like the charging goes, it's from what I've noticed, it's no charging like inside at all. So they don't want the vehicles to be placed inside, but a lot of the buildings don't have like the external ports for students to be able to charge like their e-scooters or their e-bikes. So I think that's still like a ongoing hurdle. And I think like what you said, it's kind of like up to the if the buildings are up to like this New York State like fire code and how to like kind of address that.
So the question I'll ask, and Jason, I'm probably going to ask your opinion there of what's going on at Albany. When we talk about EV charging, I know one of the first things we think about is charging for the students and the staff, but how much have we talked about, I guess, the percentage of obligation to charge the state vehicles versus our obligation to provide charging for residents and faculty and staff? I don't know if has that been a conversation?
Yeah, so I know right now, and I think this is something that's coming up, is they're actually looking at changing a parking lot currently on campus that facilities uses to be kind of like the fleet charging parking lot. So I know that's something that we are going to be approaching like very rapidly. As far as like a solid solution, I think once kind of like the groundwork or like the footprint is laid out, like we'll have like a better answer. Because then we also have all those individuals that we're going to be displacing because of needing the area to like charge our fleet. So I think that's a like future upcoming hurdle that we are going to be dealing with, I'd say.
And that's great. And one thing that we are currently going through, as we alluded to earlier, is working with NYPA, having a electrical charging feasibility study done. And future topic for our next NYSPTA University Roundtable, I'd like to share some of that information from that study because I'm sure regardless of your institution, there's going to be some takeaways that everyone can have from that. So in that regard, Jason, if you could fill us in a little bit about what you're seeing in Albany with respect to how do we charge state vehicles and what if, and do we have an obligation to help faculty, staff, students charge their vehicles as well?
Good. Thank you, George, and congratulations on your appointment to the NYSPA board. And it's great to see everybody once again. So thank you for having us. Really at the University of Albany, and really we've been working on some, I would say, EV initiatives for quite some time. You know, our first station I think was installed here about 2012. So we have a pretty good understanding of needs and what the kind of expectation is really from the beginning. I wouldn't say beginning, but really from this new wave of electric vehicle infrastructure. You know, for us, we are really have what's called kind of guidelines, and you touched upon these guidelines. One is that you can't expect it to come to the university and get a full charge or rely on charger availability, right? It's like you kind of said, it's kind of a top-off mechanism, right? That's how we view it as administrators. That's not necessarily how our customers view it, though. Okay, the customer views it as I'm going to come with as less power as possible and then charge up the vehicle. Okay, so what is the university doing to help combat some of this moving forward? Really, we have a charging per kilowatt hour will be launched in the summer once the end of the semester, and at the end of I believe that 3-hour period, we will have an escalating fee per minute. I want to say it's 5 to 10 cents per minute. So if you decide to stay there, there will be an escalating fee structure. So again, we're trying to get really movement of the stations, but again, we just got to understand. I mean, if I'm a customer, yeah, I know what your guidelines are, but I'm still going to come to the campus empty, and I'm going to try to use all 4 or 3 of those hours of charging versus my own home network. So those are things that, you think about. And then secondly, you talk about university vehicles. Actually, a lot of our university vehicles that are electric, our parking enforcement, we actually just use a level 1 trickle charge. So we charge them up over the garage because they're only operating for a certain subset of hours. Same with any maintenance vehicles as well. We stick to a level 1 overnight charge. Now, that doesn't take into account if you're using said vehicle for 16 hours a day or long periods or every day. But most vehicles on a university campus, or a lot of them, if they're shared, or we're not sure. I mean, we're talking 8 to 10 hours of maybe full use. That's a lot, So a lot of these vehicles are stop and start. So we have stuck with the trickle charge, and we've had electric vehicles and parking enforcement since 2018, and we have trickle charged them the entire 6-7 years with great success. And what happens is then we're able to make sure the charging stations we do have are available. I would say we did launch our first electrical trolley or large electrical vehicle this past August. So we did install some additional infrastructure that's only for the trolley. But yeah, so we're starting to begin to get into the electrification of large fleet, not just our enforcement fleet or smaller van vehicles. But we did launch an electric trolley this past August, and that's been a great project, and it's been a very good eye opener. But to answer your question in a long about way, a lot of our university vehicles do simply rely on a level 1 overnight trickle charge.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we did hear about your electric hometown trolley. One of the organizations here on campus pointed it out and wanted to know if we could use some funding to purchase one of those to have a custom trolley for them here on campus. So yeah, we've had our eye on you. With respect to, and Chris, I'm going to move on to you next. If you could include any conversation you may have had or policy discussion about the charging of e-bikes and scooters in and around the dorms and what solutions you may have come up with.
So as far as the scooters and the bikes, the electric ones, they don't allow those on campus simply because they don't want them, like Buffalo, they don't want them charging in the dorms and stuff. And so they just don't allow those. For EV chargers on campus, we have 3. We installed a few years ago, and we're actually going to put in 2 more soon. So we're in the process of ordering those. And similar to Buffalo, we have a 4-hour limit just to get that turnover. But yeah, it's the future. It's coming, so we got to prepare for that.
And Jason, you experienced the same thing or with respect to policy, bikes and scooters, and with the larger campuses and the micro transit, just the fact that these are coming to campus, just curious about they're arriving on campus. So is the arrival of them driving the policy and having the policy catch up to that? And then how do we push that policy back out to the students?
At the University of Albany, it's just slightly different. We have really what's considered a ring road around our university that's 25 miles an hour. It doesn't lend itself to width available for electric scooters and electric bikes. So we have tried to keep them at bay through a lot of just, regular V&T law. But they are coming quicker and quicker, and they come to campus regardless. So I think that's the point of it, although we may not allow it. It's not like we're out there pulling over the electric bikes or the electric scooters either. We actually have an incubator close to us as well, and they are working on a project for that wireless charging for the electric scooters. So we're also getting some pressure from that side as well. So the time will come, yes, that we will have to find a way to do this. But as it stands now, between our legal folks, our university police chief, and a few other departments, we have kind of put up a roadblock based on V&T law primarily, but we'll only be able to fight that for so long. It also goes back to miles per hour and, is it a local road? Is it a campus road? Is it a state road? There's a lot of complexities like on a campus as far as what an official roadway is though. So thankfully at the state university here, all our roads around us we can kind of hide behind that. So it's not a great answer, everybody, but electric scooters are all over us. They're actually engulfing the campus from all angles. So they are here. They do find their way on, and we're just trying to find a way eventually to make that work, but not at this time.
All right, thank you, Jason. I see Matt has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, George. So I want to loop back to electric vehicle charging real quick if we could. So I know, and John did a great job kind of summarizing where we're at with both personal vehicle charging and also fleet charging. I'm curious to know if our other institutions within the state of New York find growth to be a challenge. So we have about 34 charging ports right now out of 17 stations. So each station has 2 ports. And we see electric vehicles personally owned growing significantly. And not everyone can have a space at a charger every day. So, obviously we're looking to add new chargers. Now, I know once upon a time, the thought was to put EV charging stations in a premium location as kind of like an incentive, like, hey, you've got an EV, you can have access to these close by parking spaces, and that'll work out really, really dandy for you. I'm curious to know if anyone is kind of pivoting and thinking about putting them not in premium locations, not as like a disservice to an EV driver, but just because it's not really a reward anymore. It's kind of like it's becoming the norm. At least it's trending that way. So I'm curious to know if anyone has any thoughts or feedback on that.
Here at Stony Brook University, what we're thinking is a lot of the EV charging demand always come through via email, phone. People complain that there's not enough charging stations as it is. So while the NYSPTA study is ongoing, we are, working to put at least a couple of charging stations where there is a higher demand areas every year, while waiting for the master plan to give us direction and the capacity for the grid to support how many EVs we can put in. And that goes into the philosophical situation where how many EVs is enough, and eventually are we going to be like a fuel station? When EVs start, initially there's a lot of to support sustainability, everyone put in EVs. But at some point, the private sector, I'm thinking personally, in stations around campus and in the city would support that demand. And going back to the e-bike and e-scooters, we're very interested to see what other schools are doing as far as policy. I know, Chris, you mentioned it's banned on your campus, but there are other campuses that support on campus, even providing charging stations as well. And our TDM coordinator, Greg, he's tasked with stakeholders to develop policy. And we really would appreciate anyone that allows on their campus to have the e-scooters and e-bikes, what your policy, says or what works or what didn't work. Thank you.
Matthew, you had asked about electric. What was your question in relation to electric vehicle? And what my point was that now I remember. We talk about the rise of electric vehicles and how they just become more and more available or in there. And I know we got a lot of EV folks in there. I see Matthew and the like. So I'll tread carefully here. The new vehicle sales of new electric vehicle sales are not so great. Okay. I think every new vehicle, I think it's like anywhere from only 1 to 3% of new vehicles purchased are electric. So this isn't an overwhelming number still. So I think you kind of want to keep that in perspective. I did a presentation about a year ago based on the number of electric vehicles in New York State and Massachusetts. And I just pulled up the numbers quick. So basically in 2016, there was 26,000 electric vehicles on the road between Massachusetts and New York. Today, I got numbers of about 150,000 electric vehicles between the two states. Now, how many vehicles are actually in New York State and Massachusetts? Okay, so we're talking 150,000 of those vehicles are electric. It's really ultimately a small footprint to what you're really seeing in the electric. So, 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 vehicles are actually electric. So it's still not a huge demand. So the point is, I think, is that we still have time to develop our infrastructure, to get our infrastructure in play, because the electric vehicles, yes, they are coming, and those numbers increased, probably fivefold in the last couple of years, right? So it was 26,000 EVs in 2016 in Massachusetts and New York. It's up to 150,000 5-6 years later. Okay, so you see significant growth, but still, compared to new vehicle sales and what you're seeing at your universities, we run studies here at the university. Of the 12,000 permits that we sold this year, about 400 of those were to fuel efficient vehicles. Okay, which would include electric. We don't have the full breakdown, but of your 12,000 permits, there's only 400 we would consider fuel efficient or electric vehicles on campus, right? So it kind of plays with that math. So just kind of as you're planning and as you're moving forward, and as you're thinking about level 2 or level 3 or level 1, whatever it might be, you can get to a point where you install a level 2 electric charging station, and that might be outdated. That might not be your need. So Matthew, I think there is time to install the infrastructure, but the purchasing of those vehicles may not be as great as it seems based on the data from there's like an alternate data fuel calendar through the Department of Energy, if anybody's interested in, and it'll break down all of this data for you in your state, in your locality, whatever it might be. U.S. Department of Energy all fuels calendar. It gives you all this data, and you can manipulate it to show you what really numbers you want to see.
This question, I'll put this out to everyone here on the panel. Where have you seen the greatest buy-in on your campus with conversion? So we all have various campus operations maintenance, whether it's park enforcement, university police, other various departments. Where have you seen some of your biggest gains, some of your biggest buy-in? And
Speaking of,
I'll start with you, Matt.
from a UB perspective, we've seen a lot of buy-in from our IT department. They have several small vehicles that'll move around campus and install equipment, fine tune, what have you. And I think they're 100% electric, if I'm not mistaken. They have little smart cars that they'll charge up at it's actually a station that's specific to them right next to their building.
Yeah, that's great. And they have specific areas where they charge them. Was that something that was part of their plan, that they invested in the infrastructure, or was that something that the university as a whole provided?
Yeah, they kind of went off and did it on their own. They let us know that they were doing it. And it's an area that's kind of like pretty much for their use. So I don't think it required much university blessing. But we were kind of privy to it at the 11th hour and when it was happening. So we got the notice, and then a few days later the charger was installed and they were charging.
I know here at Stony Brook, we've had, like, Campus Res has replaced some vehicles over time with GEM cars. We have a lot more GEM cars, whether electric or a gas is taking over, as well as plug-in hybrids. So Jason, I don't know if those numbers that you reported for electric vehicles, included the plug-in hybrids. Okay, it did. And I know with Executive Order 22, a plug-in hybrid does count as a zero-emission vehicle. So I know here, just within our group, I know parking enforcement is going that direction with their next vehicle purchase, as well as in transit has some vehicles that we're going to replace with a plug-in hybrid as well. And, you know, that's so internally, MAPS is trying to do their part. But aside from that, not many other departments have shown the buy-in or the willingness to have the impression of having their operations affected by that. Jason, what do you see there?
Well, I'm in agreement with you. A lot of the movement from our area comes from parking and mass transit services, and we try to, you know, project outward. I would say that a lot of the proof is in the pudding on this one. We've had our electric vehicles since 2018. It's 2024. We had initially projected a life cycle of about 8 years. That has been since been bumped probably another 4 years. We estimate at this point those vehicles are probably going to last us till about 2030 at the current pace. So when you start talking about vehicle replacement and what we're doing, and granted, the 3 electric vehicles we got Nissan Leafs were part of the DEC grant that allowed for essentially an aggregate purchase. So we purchased 2 electric vehicles, which were Leafs, and essentially the third one was free, right? So now it didn't shake like that out when we were doing the grant, but essentially it was, you know, you get 2 and the third with the fee was free, right? So we bought 2 Nissan Leafs for about $50,000 in 2018. We've had almost $0 in maintenance. Obviously no fuel. We do a level 1 trickle charge. The vehicles have basically cost us nothing outside of the initial outlay. So when you're talking about, you know, how to electrify and what you do, you do have to do that analysis of, okay, how much are we spending up front, but how much are we saving over the course of the vehicle, or what we're trying to do. In this instance, I'm going to be able to justify 12 years of, you know, savings of the vehicle. And that's how, you know, we gotta kind of do it. And we do also have a committee on campus now that's focused on implementing electric vehicles as such. So basically with our purchasing, so we got a group of us. Who is it? Procurement, mass transit, facilities, you know, all those kinds of groups get together, and now we're trying to write our purchases. I'd also say in the news that a lot of the school districts are fighting against the mandates based on how much it'll actually cost New York State to implement electric school buses, which I know we're being university, that will affect us though. So we do see a lot of the school districts now fighting against that EO 22 because of the sheer cost it's going to take, not only as far as vehicles are concerned, but the massive infrastructure that it's going to take. So although, yes, there is a mandate currently in Albany here, you know, I'm connected to the state government, so I hear a lot of this stuff. There is a current movement to fight back against that executive order.
There is a couple of questions on the chat. As far as the hybrid and electric vehicles, if they are used or equipped with LPR, we have not acquired the hybrid vehicles. We're in process, and we're still in the process of getting LPR to be mounted on the existing internal combustion vehicles. We have fairly new couple of vehicles. So the answer is no, as far as, you know, MAPS.
So Matt, we'll put a pin in that question, and at our next university roundtable, hopefully we can talk about the deployment of those.
Definitely.
So let's, what time we got here? So we got another 20 minutes. So moving off of EV charging, and as I said before, we are working with NYPA and a vendor who will provide us with a charging feasibility study, and hopefully, you know, we can share some of that. And as we try and understand the relationship with the community we have and how much obligation we have for people to come to our campus and charge as opposed to the state vehicles that are charging. But that kind of goes hand in hand with, let's say, master parking plan. So our earlier presentation from Kendra that shows our 2-year progress with our master operating plan and resulting in the new technology that we're deploying here. So I offer this as a next topic as us being able to offer some advice of what we've gone through up until this point and some of the decision making that we've made in our restructuring, in our ultimate pay to park plan. So if we want to go around and talk about current plan and maybe things that you have planned for the future or would like to plan for the future at your campus, and what some of those questions might be, and maybe how we could go through some of the decision making that we've gone through here. So first, let's bring up Chris. Chris, do you have any future plans, near or far, about changes to your overall parking plan?
As far as changes, I don't think we're going to make any huge changes regards to parking, but we are going to use a mobile app for our events parking. So we're going to give that a try and see how that goes with Park Mobile. And because right now we struggle with getting our events our guests paying for their parking when they come to visit. So hopefully that'll be a great addition for us. And we currently have a pay station, and we're gonna pull that plug on that because there hasn't been much use on it. And we used to have 2, so we took out 1, and then I think next February we're gonna pull the last pay station from our campus. We still have meters, but as those start to phase out, we're gonna start pulling those out because Park Mobile is pretty much taken over those old school change meters. But yeah, those are pretty much our upcoming plans.
Thank you, Chris. Matt or John?
Yeah, I think one thing that I know is going to be a challenge that we're going to experience within the next year or so is they're going to be taking a parking lot where I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but say upwards of 150 spaces, and building a brand new academic building on that. And so all the faculty staff that are going to be displaced, and just where we can put them, and then also just learning about a new building near like one of our more higher traffic areas on campus, where they're going to be essentially putting a new building on green space, which is good. But also with a new building comes new faculty staff, and comes new challenges for as far as like the staging goes. It's right near one of like our bus loops. So figuring out how, or if that is going to be affected at all while they're making the building, and then figuring out where the individuals will go for this new building that they decided to make. So I think space is probably like our biggest concern right now, especially for the one parking lot that they're taking away, and just trying to figure out the best way to approach and like how to offset and like who to offset, and then bringing in like our shuttles and our Stampede that we run on campus, and figuring out if we do displace people and we put them out farther, then adding essentially like another service to get those displaced students or faculty staff members closer or back to campus to be dropped off.
That's a hybrid lot right now? Is that students and faculty?
No, it's only a faculty lot that they're going to be taking offline.
So this is what you're referring to, getting faculty on a bus?
Oh, no, that's a completely different thing. But that's like another thing that I think we do have like an ongoing challenge with is we do have our on-demand like campus shuttle. And encouraging people to use a parking lot on South Campus that is probably never more than like 80% full or more than 20% full, so 80% empty like all the time, like encouraging the faculty, staff, and students to utilize like our on-demand service for like our shuttles to bring them to their buildings so that they're not kind of like sharking through the parking lots and all that kind of stuff.
And I'll add in as well for the group here. So a lot of, and John hit the nail on the head, is that a lot of capital construction is going to drive parking changes. In addition to a couple, potentially 3 buildings being built in the next 5 years or so, it's going to shift people around, right? And there's also a possibility of a light rail that already exists in the city of Buffalo, extending through our campus to the northern areas of Western New York too. So there's a lot of external forces that are going to change how we do what we do. As each phase of that comes to fruition, we're hoping to incorporate more transportation demand management options, right? So talk about building buildings on top of parking lots. Obviously, the demand for parking is going to grow to an increasing amount, and spaces are going to go down. So we have to incorporate and think about ways to move people around campus more effectively. And that through a master planning process we're currently in RFP for, consultants might suggest different restrictions to parking. So for example, currently freshman residents have to leave their car in their dormitory lot from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Perhaps that means that freshmen are not allowed to bring a car to campus at all. Perhaps that's the same restriction for sophomores or any type of residents, be either dormitory or apartments. So there's going to be a lot that changes for our campus community. And I think a great deal of it, and I'm hoping a great deal of it means that, with less parking available in hotspot areas, that people look to use transit more effectively.
So you currently have an on-demand shuttle system. What percent utilized do you feel that is currently?
That's a great question. It is a very well utilized service. I couldn't put a percentage to it. I would say the percentage is probably underwhelming, just because we have 2 different styles of transit on our campus. We have large transit style buses. We also have smaller white shuttles. So the difference between, a 54 passenger vehicle with standing and sitting, and then 20 to 25 passenger shuttle. So we know we get an exceptional amount of use, about 16,000 passengers per day on that Stampede service, that large transit style bus. But for the on-demand shuttle, I think it's, I would ballpark it at like between 150 and 200 passengers per day. And that's including, all the different services that we have. We have service on the North Campus, on our South Campus. We have a late night shuttle, and that's probably the bulk of our usership through on-demand. Is the safety shuttle that operates from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m.
And now kick it over to Jason. Where do you see parking at Albany? Is there changes in near future, or any structure, pay to park, or zonal parking?
Yeah, there's actually, well, I'll back up. We actually began our parking master plan in about 2018, 2019, and we were able to implement much of that during the timeframe of 2020 to 2021 because there was less people here on campus. So what we actually did was we redesignated the parking lots. We used to have resident and we just used to have straight student parking lots. So a student can park in a student lot. We did change that to resident lots and commuter lots because what we found is all the students were just going to the same parking lot the entire time, and then other lots were wide open. So to effectively disperse some of that, we did change some designations. We also changed some split lots, which were confusing for parking citations. So which that led to less citations. Right now we're averaging probably about by the end of this year, we'll probably be about, I don't know, 30 to 40% down in citations. from this time, prior to the pandemic. So really, with signage changes, with parking lot designation changes, we have seen a decrease in parking citations because of that. So it's been really effective. Contrary to some of my colleagues here, we're actually allowing more parking on campus. We're opening up to now a good portion of the freshman class because of these changes we did a few years back. It really did alleviate some of the parking availability we have on campus. So we've identified the areas. Now it'll be the same thing. They have to park in a designated lot, and we've done some of this last couple of years. But we continue to offer the number of exceptions coming to the university as first-year students. And this is not news to anybody. The academic environment is very competitive right now. Anything to get an edge on your fellow institution. So if it's between us and Binghamton University, and Albany allows freshmen in the park and Binghamton doesn't, that might be the thing that gets us a student for 4 years. So we are looking at ways to kind of give these little initial ideas, and parking is one of them, right? So if you deposit early at the university, like in May, as a freshman, you guarantee yourself a parking space, okay? That type of stuff. So it's like an early incentive, early enrollment incentive, right? So it's part of a suite of options we're providing. So we've actually increased the parking coming out of COVID a little bit, and parking availability. Again, I know that's kind of anti what we're trying to do in this industry, but I'm also realistic that people, we have bike share, we have car share, we have every option, mass transit, we have bus rapid transit, actually one of the first in the nation bus rapid transit routes, which is like a limited stop service. It's a $63 million project through U.S. Department of Transportation, Chuck Schumer's office. He was actually on campus a few weeks back. So we're doing a lot of good things, but it hasn't stopped people from driving their single occupancy vehicle. And we have to recognize that. So how do we help that, and how do we at least facilitate that? Some of the things we also do at the university, we're pushing out all core parking. So you really do have to park in those periphery lots, not in these nooks and crannies under the tree or on the gravel, or we all have those areas. So we're trying to really get away and make it a healthy infrastructure, right? Biking, walking, fresh air, not cars and congestion and vehicular and pedestrian interactions. All that we're trying to just continue to push it out to the periphery. Again, I'm not really well liked on campus because of a lot of these things, but I'm trying to at least design it. So yeah, we practice what we preach essentially. We want to talk about sustainability. Okay, well, let's park a little further and walk. We want to talk about good health. Okay, let's park a little further and walk. There are steps that we can do as a university to help that. And whether it's parking or transit or the like. So yeah, so although we are allowing probably more parking than we have in years past, the way we're doing it is different, in addition to all the other services that we are offering. Again, I think we just have to be realistic. People are still unwilling to give up their single occupancy trips. I'm a perfect candidate of that. I drive 30 minutes every day one way by myself and one way back. My wife often tells me one paper plate at a time I use, right? So we all try to practice what we preach a little bit, but we got to find a way to do it more. And some of these things can be done through parking. And we've started to do that as part of, again, of our master plan started in 2018.
Thank you, Jason. That's some great stuff you got going there. So as we are nearing the end, we have a few minutes. What I'd like to do is kick this around to each group that's here. And okay, we're good. Yeah. We have our other panelists. We have Bo, Mary, and Patrick. So what I'd like to do, we'll go around the horn, everyone that's on here, and talk about potential topics for the next time we get together. Now, this could be something that you're currently researching, something that you may look to do something in the future, or just some insight or another topic that you'd like to address at our next university roundtable, whenever we decide that is. So, Matt, let me start with you. I know you have John here, and we'll give him an opportunity to speak as well, but appreciate any topics you may have in mind.
Sure. Yeah. So One thing that we're always looking to as far as a data point is space availability on campus, and that's, different areas, different needs, different requirements. So I'm curious to know if anyone is tackling this in a very creative way. So I know that there are like pucks and sensors and loop counters. There's all sorts of ways to go about it. Some of the creative ways that people have researched in the past are, using drones with cameras to kind of fly up in the sky and take pictures. There are cameras on light poles. There's just a lot of different ways to go about it. So I'd be curious to know if anyone is pursuing it, researching it, or interested in it. In addition to that, we currently have a project to digitize our parking inventory and kind of put out a map showing where it's likely to find parking on campus. So currently in development, we're working with a company named Modi, Modii. And I hope to have it available the next time we all group together. Certainly something to speak about at our June event or summer event. But curious to know if anyone's working on something similar to it.
All right, thank you for that. Anything to add, John?
Yeah, I would just say one thing that I have been kind of looking into myself is kind of what Matt was referring to, but just the like cameras in parking lots, just to make lot counts like easier. Seeing if you've heard like anything like negative about something bad happening if you put like a camera on a light pole in a parking lot. And figuring out like that kind of stuff. And then as well as I know one thing that I've been tasked with researching myself is just like the solar canopies. I actually noticed maybe like 30 minutes east of here, there was I think it was like the Suffolk County like courthouse. They actually have like a whole parking lot with like those solar canopies, and trying to find if there's a place that's like Buffalo that gets the kind of snow that we do, to see if it can actually like hold it up or kind of, yeah. So seeing if that's just like something that's being pursued at like other universities, like I know Rutgers, I believe it's Rutgers in New Jersey, was looking to do a whole parking lot with the solar canopies over it. So that's kind of like the two big things that I'm interested in and kind of researching myself.
All right, great, thank you. Chris, anything for the next roundtable you might be looking into?
Yeah, we'd be looking into a campus shuttle and the on-demand shuttle that Matthew was talking about. Seems interesting. Currently, we struggle with our funding for our transportation, so we got to consider all options.
Okay, thank you. Let's go over to, we have Bo listed as a panelist. Bo, any topics for our next roundtable? Oh, they're in Sydney. Yeah. Okay. Oh, so Bo, Marion, okay.
You got me now.
There you are.
Here I am coming through. Looking into different technologies that we can use to collect that data that we really need. We've got somebody on board now that's trying to assemble a lot of what we have now, but it's picking the pieces from Park Mobile and T2 and all those different areas to try to piece it together and see where we can improve on issues of occupancy throughout campus. So I think the different technologies that are available to help us through with that is something I'd be really interested in chatting more about.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have Pat Phillips. Okay. Okay. And Bo, where are you from?
Sorry, I joined the party late. Cornell University.
All right, thank you. Um,
Hey, George, I can jump in quick.
Okay.
To try to wrap this up. I guess some things we look at from the University Roundtable is something along the lines of community engagement. What kind of things are we doing to get out there to put the universities or the specific departments in good light? And I'm also working on some initiatives as part of that community engagement, how we can support our local seniors. We have some affordable housing challenges. And a lot of time those seniors are pushed out into areas that don't provide the best transportation. They don't provide the best accessible paths and the like. So as a university here, we've done some things in parking and transit to help facilitate the seniors. We've supported Meals on Wheels. We supported, delivery of things to the congregate meals where, people come from the area, from the locality and eat. So we've been doing some stuff like that in parking and mass transit. And if it's within your operations and if it's within your reason, these are things that, really consider. The seniors are a very vulnerable population. And again, as affordable housing decreases, they are further put out to the periphery of town, making it harder for them to get into the services they need, whether that be medical, food, and the like. So maybe something along a community engagement line in tune with the elderly would really be great.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. I know we don't necessarily do it here with our campus, but we do participate in a program that attempts to get food from Island Harvest to some of our food pantries here. So yeah, we could definitely assemble some different ideas of the ways that we can participate in that. I believe, did we still have Mary? I believe Mary was on as a logged out. Okay. All right. I think that wraps it up. I'd like to thank everyone for their time here, and I'm really looking forward to keeping this group going, expanding to a few more other institutions so we can share experiences that we have with the projects going on here and the things that we've learned, as well as to expand on what we're doing here with some ideas that we may be doing on other campuses that have had some fantastic results as well. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.